relatively new mandate, and really what he did was he emphasized vaccinations and boosters. And we didn't see the kind of aggressive tone that the president had earlier in the year in different phases of this pandemic, where he was calling on certain officials, for example, enforce mask mandates in public commercial spaces. That's kind of missing this time around because the administration's already in phase. We already have vaccines and testing, and so they don't believe that you have to go back to some of the pandemic era restrictions that defined a lot of the past year and a half.
Okay, I mean, there's no appetite really for lockdowns again. You just want to get the word out. The public education campaign is a big part of this. Get the vaccine, get the booster shots. They're really emphasizing that stuff. And some of the new stuff, right? We're even making family mobile vaccination sites to urge families to get that first shot. You're listening to the Daily Dive Urban Edition on Kfi Am 640 and everyone in the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about the White House's new plan to keep the Omicron variant at bay. This episode is titled Equipment between the minimum and assignment supply, 60% ITD and 625 for subject to coverage for the financing or 61. The total coverage charges may be higher over the life of the loan. Site MLS 3290, loans made or raised pursuant to California financing law license number 6036970, equal housing number.
Home loan rates are incredibly low. If you recently refinanced and your rate is higher than 2%, call IntelliLoan. Your Steve refinanced last year and was certain he had a great rate.
I refinanced last year and I saved a ton of money. I thought I had a great rate, so doing another refinance wasn't even a consideration. But just recently I got curious. Could I save money again? I was shocked to find out I could save money. I thought I had a great rate. If you've refinanced recently and you haven't asked if you could save money again, you should ask.
Be like Steve and ask again. IntelliLoan is offering a 1.99% fixed rate in APR with no points and no lender fees. A 1.99%. Call 1-800-918-6200. That's 1-800-918-6200 or go to IntelliLoan.com. IntelliLoan. Borrow smart.
Invert your thinking with a free upgrade to the IQ8 microinverter, the world's only microinverter that provides instant energy backup during a power outage from Semper Solaris, your local veteran-owned solar and battery storage contractor. Here's veteran, founder and owner, Kelly Shawhands.
In the military, when you give your word, it just is your word. You work hard to keep your word, and that's what we do every single day. Heard about Semper Solaris, and found out that they were veterans. I knew they were going to do the job right.
Add Tesla Powerwall and be ready for blackouts. We get the job done with esprit de corps and honor. Semper Solaris offers new heating and air conditioning systems with a lifetime warranty and new roofs with a 50-year warranty. Go solar American style with Semper Solaris. 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2023. Get the federal 26% solar and battery tax credit. Call 877-211-5591. That's 877-211-5591. Or visit SemperSolaris.com.
IQ8 price the same as IQ7. 26% federal tax credit based on eligibility. Consult your tax advisor. Cannot be combined with any other offers. Some restrictions apply. New customers only. Call or see website for details. Expires 12/31/2021. CSW number 978-152.
Helpful Honda dealers were back at it again, and another random act of helpfulness. Jessica wrote in to nominate her sister Amanda.
Amanda is the first in her family to go to college, and now she's been accepted into medical school. The costs associated with medical school are steep, and Amanda is working overtime in the ER on Christmas to save money.
To help, the helpful SoCal Honda dealers are sending Amanda $500 to pay towards the cost of tuition and medical school supplies. For more random acts of helpfulness, follow SoCal Honda dealers on Facebook.
There's stuff that your mom never told you. So join hosts Annie Reeves and Samantha McVeigh of the podcast appropriately named Stuff Mom Never Told You. Each weekday, they discuss topics such as politics, history, and pop culture, all examined from an intersectional feminist lens.
In our society, we do pressure people, especially women, to forgive. Since we've both gone through trauma, I just was so torn by it. I'm like, what if I can't forgive?
Listen to the Stuff Mom Never Told You podcast from the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, I know. I have a calming demeanor. You know, when it's your job basically to push people beyond their comfort zones, it's good to make them feel as safe as possible. Like an open heart surgeon for your home. You'll do fine. No worries. We got it.
Home with Dean Sharp, the House Whisperer, this morning at 9 on KFI AM 640.
More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. Testing is a huge one because this is kind of one of those components that kind of started falling by the wayside a little bit once the vaccination push came, but they want to have people be reimbursed at least for the cost of at-home testing kits. This would be done, something done with health insurance.
Yes, and that's been a big challenge for the administration because although they have made more testing available, there has still been a shortage when it comes to the availability of rapid at-home tests. And there is also a widespread sense that they cost too much. They can cost $20 or more. Sometimes they're not available when you go to your local pharmacy. And so what Biden announced today is that these at-home tests, for people who have private insurance, they will be reimbursed through insurance coverage. And then for those people who do not have private insurance, which of course is also a sizable chunk of the population, the administration is going to try and make more of these tests available at community health centers and rural clinics and other harder to reach areas or areas that serve underserved communities. So, I think that that's certainly something that is new because a lot of public health experts have said that, to your point, the administration kind of dropped the ball on texting, that it should be a lot more accessible than it is right now. And that's going to be a key part, again, of combating a new variant, is the ability for people, including people who are fully vaccinated, to test quickly and self-isolate if they need to isolate or take other measures if they test positive.
Right. The guidance for that, the testing stuff is going to be released by January 15th. From what I saw, it's not going to be retroactive or anything, so we're going to have to wait until then before reimbursements can start. So just there'll be more information coming out about that one. But yeah, it's an important part just to kind of keep people in the know of what their current status is, right? So they can not go to work, not travel, all that. It's a big important component. And then, as we mentioned too, the education for more booster shots, that's another big part of it. They want to make sure everybody can go out and get them.
They do, and there have been a good number of people who have gone out to get boosters since they became available, but of course there is still vaccine hesitancy across the board, where you have some people, of course, who have not even gotten the first round of vaccine, and then you do have a drop-off for people who are fully vaccinated, but don't necessarily think that they need to get a booster, and I think what we saw the president emphasize is that the current, it can always change, but the current consensus he's got from public health officials is that the existing vaccines and boosters do provide sufficient protection against this Omicron variant. Now, the administration is talking to these vaccine manufacturers in case there are modifications that are needed for these vaccines, but right now they believe that the best protection is to be vaccinated and boosted, and they pointed out that the case that we saw, the first case we saw here in the U.S. and California, that individual was fully vaccinated and only experienced mild symptoms. And, the person who was also, the case that was identified in Minnesota, that individual also experienced only mild symptoms. And so I think they do believe that vaccinations are the key again. And all they can really do is push people. It also shows the kind of limitations of the presidency, right? The president can't force people to take precautions or force people to get vaccinated, but that really is the messaging that you're seeing coming out of the administration, and also just urging cause, telling people not to panic.
Sabrina Siddiqui, White House reporter at the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
This week, the Supreme Court also heard arguments in the Mississippi abortion case that bans abortions after 15 weeks. There's a lot of scrutiny on what will happen with this decision, as it could overrule Roe v. Wade. There could also be a scenario where they overrule that decision while still not abolishing the constitutional right to an abortion. For more on all this, we'll speak to Ian Millhiser, senior correspondent at Vox.
This is the single greatest threat to abortion rights since Roe was decided in 1973. We have a court that has a 6-3 Republican majority. The president, who has appointed most of these justices, has promised to appoint justices who will overrule Roe v. Wade, and I'm inclined to believe that. I think that there are some questions about what the opinion will say. The court may not actually use the words Roe v. Wade is overruled, but they could still put in place all kinds of their right that has the same effect as overruling Roe, and I don't know what's going to happen here, but I think that it is likely that the court is going to hand an enormous defeat to supporters of abortion rights, potentially including explicitly overruling Roe.
Now, the Mississippi law would ban abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. And you make a point that the question in this is very important. There's a very specific question presented in this one is not should Roe v. Wade be overruled. It's about pre-viability prohibitions on abortion and whether those are constitutional or not. So that's why there could be this thing where they basically overrule it without specifically saying those words as you mentioned.
To dive down into the weeds a bit here, whenever the Supreme Court announces it's going to hear a case, or at least that it's going to give it full briefing and oral argument, it also announces something called a question presented. And the question presented is a specific legal question that the court intends to resolve. The question presented in this case, like you said, is whether states are allowed to ban abortion prior to the point of viability. Viability is when the fetus lives outside of the womb. And the answer to that right now is no, they absolutely cannot. That was the holding of the court's decision in Planned Parenthood v. Case that prior to viability, if you are pregnant, you have an absolute right to terminate the pregnancy. So this, first of all, is the court is asking directly, should we overrule Case? Should we overrule this part of Casey, which says that prior to viability, there should be no bans on abortion? But second of all, if you get rid of the viability line, it's not entirely clear how much of Roe is left. I mean, someone has to decide where is the line, and if the court isn't going to say that we're going to set the line at viability, what does that mean? States get to determine when the fetus is viable. Could a state say that it's going to ban abortions after the first minute of pregnancy? So, this rigid line, there is this time period, can ban abortion after this, can't do it before it, is the core of the abortion right. And if you take that away, it's not clear how much is left.
And it's so complicated, obviously, where they still have to hear the arguments, they have to take their time and make their decision. There's a lot still yet to be happened, but when we're looking at things, Justice Anthony Kennedy was so key in upholding Roe v. Wade. He's retired now. We know the lean of the court now leans more conservative. They have this precedent of not really overruling past precedent and past rulings, but there's all sorts of political implications. What happens if they do overrule it? A lot of people are going to start speaking pretty badly about the Supreme Court. There's so much that's going to happen in these decisions.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, this is the most conservative Supreme Court that we have had since the early days of the Franklin Roosevelt administration. Like, the last time we were close, that was this right-wing. We were in the middle of the Great Depression. So we don't know yet how far these justices are going to go, but I'm anticipating that they're probably going to go pretty far. And the biggest evidence for that is the fact that this particular case out of Mississippi involved a ban on abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. There's another law that probably a lot of people have heard of, FCA, the Texas abortion ban, which bans abortions after the 6th week of pregnancy, and the Supreme Court has allowed that unconstitutional law to go into effect. They have said even though Casey is still technically good law, and even though part of viability, people have an absolute right to terminate a pregnancy, they have allowed this 6-week ban, which clearly violates the rule in Casey, to go into effect. And I just can't imagine why the court would do that unless it intends to overrule Casey.
And the distinction is very important, right? If they do overrule Roe v. Wade, let's say, there's a dozen states that have these trigger laws you mentioned in the article that will basically automatically ban almost all abortions if they overrule it. So getting those specific words, if that's the way they rule, is supremely important.
Yeah, I mean, it does matter whether the court uses the word Roe v. Wade as those rules, because as you said, a lot of states have these trigger laws where if the court says those words, abortion is banned in the state. But I wouldn't exaggerate too much how much that distinction between a case that explicitly overrules Roe and a case that finds a backhanded way to eliminate abortion rights. If you don't have a right to abortion, you don't have a right to abortion. If the court hands down some extremely complicated, lawyered within an inch of its life decision that doesn't use the words Roe v. Wade overruled, but that erects a bunch of procedural barriers that make it impossible for anyone to bring an abortion suit, that's still basically the same thing that was ruling Roe.
Right. Ian Millhiser, senior correspondent at Vox, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640 and everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'll be back with some more top stories from the week. But first, let's get an update from the KFI newsroom.
KFI News on the hour, on the half, and when it breaks.
I'm Brian Bruman from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. CNN has fired commentator Chris Cuomo effective immediately. Cuomo was suspended earlier this week after new information surfaced about his efforts to help his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, fight sexual harassment allegations. CNN says the decision comes after they hired a law firm to review the new information, and that despite the firing, they will continue to investigate as appropriate. President Biden says more Americans are heading back to work. 210,000 jobs were added last month, but that was far below expectations.
In the first 10 full months of my administration, the economy has created 6 million jobs, a record for a new president.
Biden says unemployment fell to 4.2%. The jobless rate was 4.6% in October, but Biden says the U.S. economy is in much better shape than it was a year ago. SoCal weather from KFI, brought to you by Audible. There's a dense fog advisory in the Inland Empire until 9 in the morning. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Brian Bruman.
Traffic will run through Gorman southbound on the 5 at the Fraser Mountain Park Road off-ramp. For several hours, the whole freeway was shut down with a massive drought. It's all wrapped up. Everything off to the right shoulder, and all lanes are open again on the 5 southbound. Left lane taken away on both sides of the Santa Monica Freeway, and right behind the McCourt Tunnel is trying to get that crash off to the shoulder. Another one here for the 110 south at the Santa Monica Freeway. Disabled car, left lane blocked, and the 2 right lanes are blocked with a collision in Upland on the 10 westbound at the Mountain Avenue off-ramp. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Bill Thomas. Audible is the best place to listen for everything you're into, from comedy and motivation to popular podcasts and best-selling audiobooks. Right now, take advantage of a special holiday offer and save 60% on your first 3 months. Learn more and sign up at audible.com.
Contractor license 1047-781. Sometimes when I'm hanging out with my ghetto technicians, they tell me something I never expected. Really? Like what? Most of our guys used to work for small companies before they came to work for us.
I can't believe you didn't know that already.
Oh, I knew that. What I didn't know is that most of them were afraid of coming to work for a big company like Gettle. They were afraid of becoming invisible, you know, like a cog in a machine.
I was afraid too.
So why did you come, Zach?
I came to Gettle for the same reason as all them other guys.
I'm on pins and needles.
I came because you don't take shortcuts. Good technicians always want to work for someone who believes in doing things the right way, not the easy way.
I appreciate you saying that, Zach.
And we appreciate you giving us the time to do the job right, even after we've already quoted a price, and all them extra hours coming out of your pocket.
If I didn't do things the right way, my dad would slap me on the back of my head, and he was big.
And you ain't never make none of us feel invisible either.
GOE-TTL.
We'll keep you cool, but it's hard to spell.
Audible is the best place to listen for everything you're into, from comedy and motivation to popular podcasts and best-selling audiobooks. Right now, take advantage of a special holiday offer and save 60% on your first 3 months. Learn more and sign up at audible.com.
With school back in session, there's plenty to worry about. CalHope can help with free COVID-19 emotional support. Call 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
By now, you've heard the news. Boosters for Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines are available. They help keep your immunity strong and help keep you and others protected against COVID-19 and its variants. Visit myturn.ca.gov to find out if you're eligible and to find a booster near you. Let's keep each other safer and healthier this winter. Get your booster, and don't forget to get your flu shot, too. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
KFI AM 640. KFI and Smart & Final are teaming up for this year's Pasta-Pon. Head into any Smart & Final to donate right at the register. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640, heard everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. One of the stories we've been hearing a lot about is the great California exodus, people leaving the state. And while that continues, it might not be what you think. Many people are moving, but not necessarily out of state. Instead, they're moving inland to the east. The Inland Empire tied Phoenix for 2020's biggest gain in households as people are looking for bigger properties and cheaper home prices. With this influx of new households also comes more economic opportunities and more diverse neighborhoods. For more on where Californians are moving, we'll speak to Christine Mai Duke,
state politics and housing reporter for the Wall Street Journal.
There is a lot of talk about people leaving California altogether, whether it's the politics, the high taxes, kind of narrative that there's this exodus. But in reality, a lot of people want to stick closer to home. A lot of people want to be able to afford a home or a bigger home, but they want to stay in California. And so there's this kind of demographic churn that's happening of people moving more east, more inland, and into places that have cheaper land, cheaper housing prices, kind of newer schools in some cases. And what comes with that, though, is sometimes, longer commutes for people who still continue to work in those metropolitan coastal areas. So that's been a trend for quite some time, maybe the last couple of decades or so, because so much more housing building has happened in the inland areas. But it really did accelerate during the pandemic. What you saw was, based on our reporting, people who had a little bit more flexibility with their employers on whether or not they had to go in the office or how often, really took the opportunity to finally upgrade their home and spend a lot less money for something that they could stretch out and have a little more room, be able to send their kids to better schools. So it, increased the net gain of households into the Inland Empire area, as you said, Riverside and San Bernardino counties, by about 50% from the year before. So it was a really big marked increase.
Yeah, definitely. And I also love this other stat that you had there in the article, that the Inland Empire tied the Phoenix region for 2020's biggest gain in households. This is from migration nationwide, so people coming from all over the place, obviously, but it's a big driver of those from California. And one of the interesting things you noted here too, right? So the coastal cities and places like LA, San Francisco, it's still home to a lot of very affluent people and then very low-income people. So it's tough to put people in a middle class now, right? Because those lines have all kind of blurred too. But people moving towards the Inland Empire, it's kind of becoming this more middle class area. And even then, the effects it's having there is pushing people out further east too.
The people that I talked to who recently moved to the Inland Empire, the Inland Empire is a vast area that goes all the way to the Arizona-Nevada border and also comes right up against the LA and Orange County borders. So you're talking about a huge variation of the different types of housing, the socioeconomic status of these communities, the quality of the schools, all these things factor in. But for the people who I talked to, they ranged anywhere from making a couple $1,000s a month to, being able to afford $1.2 million home. So when you talk about the middle class and who can afford to live there, the people who are moving there alone are kind of varied, but people that I've talked to who have lived there for a really long time are recognizing these rising house prices in the Inland Empire specifically because of the people who are coming and bringing their bigger budget and what impact that is having on them. So people who live there already and want to move or upgrade their home have to move even further east to find what they're looking for. Or renters, are finding that they're stuck and locked in where they are because they can't afford to move. So it's definitely having a major impact on the local economy, the local housing market, and we're just going to have to see what happens from here.
One of the cities that you profiled in the story is Eastvale, with a very young mayor, by the way. I did not know that. I think she's 26 years old.
Young city, young mayor.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because there's a lot of people going there.
Eastvale is a really interesting place that has, really sprung up almost out of nowhere. 20 years ago, this place was all dairy farms. It only incorporated as a city, became an official city in 2010. And since then, they've just had gangbusters development. Of almost all of their housing stock, all of their homes, which are mostly single-family homes, have been built since the year 2000. I mean, that is just insane to just see this area that was just literally all cow fields now turned into all housing. The end of 2020, the last dairy farm, which used to kind of dominate the area, in Eastvale closed down for good. So it's now a very classically suburban California town, and they've got, a school district that's bursting at the seams. They've got big, nice, manicured thoroughfares. They've got shopping centers. They've got 24 businesses that are expected to open in the next 2 years in a town that's relatively small, honestly. So it's kind of an indication of the affluence that's moving in from LA and Orange counties. A lot of people, city leaders say, do end up commuting to those areas, or they work from home. And it's really interesting to me to see kind of this town that we saw a lot of people going to for the affordability, for the kind of quality of life that they could get for the price. And it's really indicative of some of these transplants to the Inland Empire.
Yeah, Jocelyn Yao, their 26-year-old mayor, said that, hey, she's pointing to another city in Orange County, Irvine, California, which is a great place, obviously, a lot of affluent people too. She's like, hey, we have everything. They have just about half the price now. So he's like, come down over here, basically. And, you know, the median household income there in Eastvale now is about $120,000, which is more than any other city there in that region. So that's looking very good for them. And with all that, the influx of people, influx of money and everything, right? So the local economy is doing well. You mentioned about a bunch of businesses opening in Eastvale, but just in the region altogether, right? We're seeing huge Walmart and Amazon fulfillment centers, a lot of job opportunities, and just because they have the space for a lot of it.
Yeah, so that is true, right? There are these huge opportunities for jobs with the logistics hubs there, with Amazon in the area of not just Eastvale, just like the whole Inland Empire is home to a lot of these warehouses. But that has been an ongoing debate about whether that's a good thing, right? I mean, you have these folks who are still, you're not making $119,000 median income working at Amazon, or at least the vast majority of those Amazon jobs. So one of the issues is, you know, as more and more people move out to places like Eastvale and commute into LA and Orange County during the week, that's going to have a major impact on traffic. There's residents there all talk about the traffic on the freeways and how terrible it can get, you know, even during the pandemic in some cases. And so traffic, there's, you know, auto emissions, kind of climate change issues, and also who lives there and who is experiencing the pollution from that increased traffic, from the trucks that are going in and out there. So there's an ongoing debate that we didn't really get into in that story about what types of jobs can be generated in the area to keep more of the workers there, just to kind of get the economy going locally, even if people are moving out for housing prices, like what types of jobs can be there to actually help sustain the rising housing prices even there.
And that's a very interesting discussion because, right, we're talking about this California exodus, and for a time, people were pointing to places like Idaho and Iowa and things like that where there was a lot of Californians moving over there. And then all these small towns that the influx of people were going to started causing all these extra problems, right? The increase in traffic, pollution, noise pollution, all that. And the locals there were not having it. They didn't like it anymore. So that'd be an interesting thing to see how the residents, longtime residents of these areas feel about the influx there. So, yeah, I mean, just an interesting look at all of that. And you mentioned the diversity, right? The political diversity that's going on in these areas as they start to change, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Riverside County, for example, 10 years ago had more Republican registered voters than Democrats, and that has switched in the last decade. And I think, the big cities always kind of start to become more diversified and more Democratic leaning first, but I think that's happening throughout the county now as people move further and further out, and they're taking kind of their backgrounds with them, they're taking their political beliefs with them, and in cases kind of growing those communities. So it'll be interesting to see, especially with redistricting coming up now, what that looks like in the future. I'm not sure, but it certainly is going to have major impacts when you have this much movement of people within the state of California. And I will say, too, all those places that you mentioned, Boise, Texas, all the places that are complaining about traffic and other things, I mean, there's also a huge increase in housing prices when outsiders come and bring those budgets in the same way that we're seeing within California and in the inland areas of California. And so at the base of this, the issue is there isn't enough housing for anybody, period, right? The housing prices continue to go up, and I think it really puts a fine point on the shortage of housing and affordable and available housing, especially in the coastal areas where people are leaving. But, that just continues to have ripple effects more and more inland.
Christine Mai Duke, state politics and housing reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for joining us, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on Kfi Am 640. When we come back, we'll tell you how getting some professional degrees are leaving students with insurmountable debt and without the salaries to match.
Rates subject to change without notice. Certain restrictions and minimum loan amount requirements apply. 60% LTV and 620 FICO score. Subject to credit approval by refinancing your existing loan. Your total finance charges may be higher over the life of the loan. NMLS 3290. Loans made or arranged pursuant to California Financing Law License number 6036970. Equal housing lender.
You asked, play holiday songs. Dashing through your home with a brand new sparkly rate. You got a new home loan that's really, really great. IntelliLoan's your fave. Your bank account is bright. What fun it is to save, save, save with IntelliLoan Refi. Home loans, a 1.99 rate. Oh, what fun it is to save, call IntelliLoan today. Lock in a 1.99% fixed rate in APR. That's just 1.99%. Call IntelliLoan at
800-918-6200. That's 800-918-6200. 800-918-6200. Or visit IntelliLoan.com. IntelliLoan. Borrow smart.
The holidays are here. Time to have friends and family over for seasonal festivities. Oh, wait, your yard's an embarrassment. Save the season with a new Tough Turtle Turf yard. The transformation will amaze family and friends. Tough Turtle Turf is incredibly durable. Imagine the added living space and all the extra room to play. Add a fire pit and cozy up. Who knows, Santa may stick around for a burger. No more mowing, huge water bills, or ruined weekends. Let our design specialists create a beautiful escape for all seasons. And with all the money you'll save on maintenance and water bills, Tough Turtle Turf will pay for itself. Transform your yard from eyesore to oasis this holiday season. For a limited time, get your new yard with 0 down, 0 interest for 12 months. Plus, we pay the tax. Call now, 888-665-2661. 888-665-2661. Or visit toughturtleturf.com today.
On approved credit only. Minimum purchase required. Cannot be combined with other offers. New customers only. Some restrictions may apply. See dealer for details. Expires 12/31/21. CSLB number 1073646. NFCB number 0086683.
I suggest you take a hard look at the interest rates you're paying on your credit cards, car loans, or anything else. With today's low mortgage rates and rising home values, why not refinance with Owning? Pull some cash out of your home and take control of high-interest debts. Call Owning at 8332-OWNING or log on to owning.com. In minutes at no cost or obligation, our experienced agents can tell you how much money you have sitting in your house. Then refinance at today's 30-year fixed 2.5% rate, 2.731 APR. And use some of that low-interest money to pay off debt, do things around the house, or for anything you want. Your house may be your piggy bank.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval for qualified borrowers. Call 833-303-2161 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
Call Owning at 8332-OWNING or log on to owning.com. That's 8332-OWNING or go to owning.com.
Portions of the following program will be recorded.
So I told my daughter, whatever you do, don't panic. Earthquake happens, and the other two kids run downstairs. They run outside my wife. I go barreling up to get my daughter. She's in the shower, just coming out of the shower. She's got a towel on, towel around her head. And I go, hey, babe, let's go! And she goes, I'll get dressed and meet you down. Man, if she had a cigarette, she'd take a big hit first. I'll throw some things on and meet you down.
The Tim Conway Jr. Show. Weeknights at 6 on KFI.
You pick the top tier of 5 or 6 or 8, Stephen, and say, these are the people we think have the best ideas, and we're going to use all of the other 13, 14 people to be the main advisors on how to get this ball over the touchdown line, end zone.
Can we dump the last 10 seconds?
Yeah, that last part where I tried to make a sports analogy and sounded like handle.
Jerry and Shannon. Weekdays at 10 a.m. KFI. KFI. AM 640. More stimulating talk. KFI. AM 640. I know the weight of the world seems to rest on your shoulders. And sometimes life seems like it's filled only with confusion and chaos. But I assure you, I have a plan for you. The Jesus Christ Show. This morning at 6 on KFI. AM 640.
More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640, heard everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. Finally, for this week, an interesting story on the education front. The cost of getting some professional degrees are leaving students with high debt and without the high salaries to match. Programs for veterinarians, dentists, chiropractic medicine, physical therapy, and even optometry are producing graduates with high debt and very modest beginning salaries 2 years in. For a look at how some of these professional degrees are still hurting students, we'll speak to Andrea Fuller, reporter at the Wall Street Journal.
I've been covering student debt really intensively for the past year, and one of the things that I noticed as we read about high debt graduate degrees like film and football, people would say, oh, the debt, sure, it's manageable. If you're a dentist, then you're going to go be a dentist and you'll make a lot of money and you'll be fine. But actually, that's not necessarily the case. And some of these people with professional degrees to become a dentist or a veterinarian. And while their salaries are higher than the average American, they're not making enough to really cover the interest on this. because these loans, you're paying on grad plus loans often 6-7% interest. So you see cases where people owe $20,000 a year in interest, and it can quickly get out of control.
You mentioned grad plus. This is a program that lets students cover their school costs and living expenses, and I think that's important because if you're rolling everything into these loans, that's where these high prices are really coming from.
Absolutely.